I'm a nurse in Seattle. After I reported the hospital assault, HR opened a 63-page report. You're overreacting, Claire. It was just a misunderstanding, my supervisor whispered outside the IQ. HR slid a thick file across the table. This is about your behavior. That's when I knew. They were protecting him. My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 34 years old. I've been a registered nurse in Seattle for 9 years. I work long shifts in critical care. I'm the one families cry on. I'm the one who stays late. I grew up believing hospitals were sacred places, safe places. I'm not from a powerful family. No connections, just hard work and student loans. At work, I wasn't loud. I wasn't dramatic. I was the dependable one. The nurse who never complained. The nurse who covered other people's shifts. The nurse who stayed quiet when doctors snapped. But I wasn't invisible. I had dreams of becoming a nurse practitioner one day. I believed if you told the truth, people would protect you. I believed the system worked. I was wrong. What happened to me changed how I see power, silence, and loyalty. I wasn't seen as a victim. I was treated like a problem. And this is a true American story. If you've ever worked in healthcare or any job where speaking up felt risky, hit that subscribe button. Have you ever reported something and regretted it? I want to hear your story in the comments. Click hype if you believe workplaces should protect people who tell the truth. Let's get into it. It was a Tuesday night shift, around 2 a.m. The ICU was quiet. The only sound the soft beeping of monitors. I needed more gauze, so I stepped into the supply room. The door clicked shut behind me, and before I could reach the shelf, I heard the door open again. It was him, a senior doctor, well-respected, always smiling in meetings. He stood in the doorway, blocking it. "Relax, Claire. You're too tense," he said, his voice low. I tried to step around him, but he moved closer. His hand landed on my waist, fingers pressing into my scrub top. "Don't be so serious," he whispered. "We're just having fun." I felt my stomach drop. I pulled away hard, my back hitting a shelf. I didn't say a word. I just slipped past him and walked out, my hands shaking. The next morning, I went to HR. I sat in a small, windowless room and told them everything. The HR representative nodded, her face polite but cold. "Are you sure you didn't misinterpret the interaction?" she asked. I said I was sure. She took notes and said they'd look into it. But by the end of the week, rumors were spreading on my unit. I'd walk into the break room and conversations would stop cold. Coworkers I'd helped cover shifts for suddenly couldn't make eye contact. My schedule changed. I was given the hardest assignments, the most difficult patients. Then, 1 week later, I was called back to HR. They placed a thick, printed document in front of me. It was 63 pages long, a report detailing allegations about my hostile tone, my unprofessional conduct, and my team disruption. There were witness statements from nurses I'd trained, from people I considered friends. The doctor, meanwhile, continued working like nothing happened. Then I learned the twist from a former coworker who texted me anonymously. This wasn't his first complaint. Another nurse had quit last year after a vague conflict with him. The public humiliation came at a staff meeting. Leadership emphasized that false accusations can damage reputations. Every head in the room turned to look at me. I sat there, frozen. I realized then that I wasn't being investigated. I was being set up to lose my job. The attacks came in waves. First, anonymous complaints magically appeared in my personnel file. One said, "Claire intimidates residents." I was immediately removed from the mentorship program I'd loved. Then came the professional sabotage. I logged in one morning and saw a medication documentation error under my name, a discrepancy I never made. I reported it immediately. It reviewed the access logs and said they were unclear. I was placed under review, my charting watched like a hawk. The tension was a constant, heavy weight. I felt like I was drowning. But then, a quiet coworker pulled me aside in the parking lot. She told me something that changed everything. The doctor wasn't just under investigation for harassment. A man had been killed. He was found dead in a downtown restaurant after a private meeting. That murdered man had deep business ties to the hospital board. Rumors were flying that the doctor's name had appeared in some of the victim's secret emails. My heart pounded in my chest. The next day, I accidentally received an internal email that wasn't meant for me. It contained threads of deleted complaints against the doctor, spanning years. I stared at the screen, the truth clicking into place. HR wasn't just covering up harassment. They were hiding something bigger, something connected to that murder. My supervisor cornered me in the hallway, her face pale. "You don't understand who you're dealing with," she whispered. "Let this go, Claire." I didn't respond. But later that week, my badge access was suspended. Security escorted me out of the building one evening, citing an ongoing investigation. The official letter arrived the next day. I was placed on unpaid leave indefinitely. But what they didn't know was that I keep records. I learned it from my father, a man who was always getting into disputes with contractors. "Always keep receipts," he used to say. So, I documented everything. Every shift change they forced on me. Every cold email. I saved screenshots of those deleted complaints before they vanished from the server. And after that first chilling HR meeting, I started recording conversations on my phone. I had a folder at home, thick with paper and digital files. I contacted one person I trusted absolutely. "If anything happens to me," I told them, "you release everything to the press and the state board." At work, I stopped reacting emotionally. I became calm, almost robotic. I pretended to cooperate with their reviews. They thought I was breaking. They thought I was giving up. They never saw what was coming. I started researching. I learned one board member had a deep fear of public scandal, more than lawsuits. I connected the dots between the harassment complaints, the deleted misconduct reports, and the murdered businessman. The hospital wasn't just protecting a doctor. They were protecting themselves from a conspiracy. I built a timeline, linking their internal suppression directly to that man's death. I realized then that truth isn't just power. If used right, it's a weapon. I needed someone who understood how power worked. So I contacted my late grandmother's attorney. He was an old man, nearing retirement, who had spent decades handling estate disputes for Seattle's wealthiest families. He knew their secrets, their patterns. We met in his dusty office, the smell of old books and paper filling the air. I slid my folder across his desk. He read in silence for a long time. Finally, he leaned back. "Claire," he said, a slight smile on his face, "if they opened a 63-page report on you, they're scared." He reviewed my documentation line by line. He confirmed it showed clear patterns of internal retaliation. He found inconsistencies in HR's official statements. And then he connected my evidence to larger financial disputes tied to the murdered man. Meanwhile, the hospital made their move. They sent me a settlement offer. It was a decent amount of money, enough to cover my debts. But it included a strict enda. "Sign this and move on," the letter read. My family pressured me hard. "You can't fight a whole hospital, Claire," my mom said, her voice tired. "Just take the money." To make it worse, The hospital publicly promoted the doctor. They even hosted a charity gala celebrating excellence in leadership. And he was the guest of honor. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd disappear. My lawyer told me, "Don't respond. Don't even acknowledge the offer. Let them think they've crushed you." The meeting was set in my lawyer's conference room, a sterile space with a long mahogany table. On one side sat me and my lawyer. On the other, the hospital's entire legal team, including the HR representative who had first taken my report. They looked confident, almost bored. They slid the settlement agreement across the table toward me. A pen rested on top of it. "This is your best option, Claire," the HR rep said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. My lawyer didn't even look at the paper. Instead, he reached down and picked up a thick folder from his briefcase. He placed it on the table with a soft thud. He opened it. Inside were printed transcripts of my audio recordings, screenshots of the emails showing deleted complaints, and a detailed timeline connecting the hospital's cover up to the murdered businessman. "You retaliated against a sexual assault report," my lawyer said, his voice calm and clear. "And you obstructed internal investigations into a doctor with a known history of misconduct." The hospital attorney across from us went pale, his jaw tightening. He said nothing. My lawyer continued, his tone cold and confident. "If this goes public, it won't just be an HR story. It becomes a criminal investigation." He let the words hang in the air, referencing the murder. The power in the room shifted instantly. The HR rep's smugness vanished. She looked at the hospital's lawyer, panic in her eyes. They asked for time to review the new information. That's when I finally spoke. My voice was quiet, but steady. "I came to you for protection. I trusted you. And you tried to bury me." I leaned forward. "Now you answer." Within a week, the doctor was quietly placed on administrative leave. The hospital agreed to a formal investigation led by an external firm. They retracted every disciplinary claim against me. The 63-page report, built on lies, collapsed under the weight of my evidence. I walked out of that final meeting not as a victim, but as a whistleblower. The external investigation took 3 months. Their final report confirmed systemic retaliation. The doctor resigned before any formal charges could be filed. The hospital board member with ties to the murdered man stepped down, citing personal reasons. I received a public apology from the hospital's CEO. It was carefully worded, clearly written by lawyers, but it was official, and it was on record. I didn't go back to that unit. I couldn't. The memories were too heavy. Instead, I transferred to a different hospital system across town. I also started advocating for healthcare worker protections. I began speaking at small nursing conferences, sharing my story. I'm no longer the quiet nurse who just stays late and never complains. I still love patient care, the reason I entered this field. But now, I understand power. I understand how institutions work. I keep copies of everything from that time, stored in multiple places. I learned the hardest truth of all. Silence protects institutions, but evidence protects people. If you've ever experienced workplace assault or retaliation after speaking up, you're not alone. Have you been told to let it go to protect someone powerful? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. Subscribe if you believe survivors deserve protection, not punishment. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give this video helps empower someone else. Thank you for being here and for listening.